don't think it's a secret that we moved up for him because of what we thought about him as a person, as a player. We gave him that extension because of the same things. And so when you have players like that, they're like fingers on your hands. You can't even imagine that they're not part of you, that they're not here. And, that's how we feel about Carson.
The date on that was January 4, and it was January 4, 2021, not 2020, not 2019, not any other year, but just 6 weeks or so ago. Hey, thank you. John Lynch. And it's nothing personal against John Lynch. He's learned the job after 4 years. You got to say things in a public setting that may not mesh with what you actually feel, because when you are too candid with what you feel, you end up making it harder to do business. So perfect example of why I said that I don't believe anything that John Lynch had to say about Jimmy Garoppolo. Now that Carson Wentz is gone, though, the job falls to Jalen Hurts, plus whoever they may bring in to compete with Jalen Hurts. And the Eagles believe, and I've been told that they think backup quarterback is a top 15 position on the roster. Peter King said last week they view it as a top 10 position. I'm going to stick with what I heard as top 15. Either way, you got to go get somebody else, whether it's through the draft, they've got the 6th overall pick, or via free agency or a trade or something to go along with Jalen Hurts, compete with Jalen Hurts, and in theory win the job.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Mike. And you look at maybe a quarterback like Jacoby Brissett, and, could he possibly be a guy that could come in? Or do they draft a quarterback, a Justin Fields or a Trey Lance to come in and compete? So they've got a lot of options here. They don't have a lot of salary cap space, we know, but they do have a lot of options with what they want to do with that position. But I do think they need somebody to compete with Hurts. I mean, we haven't seen enough of Hurts, and they haven't seen enough of Hurts, Mike, to know that he is the guy. He is the future franchise quarterback for this team. I mean, I know they drafted him in the 2nd round, but he started 4 games last year. So you haven't seen enough to know exactly what you have in him, Mike.
I'd have to go back and do the research and really think about it, but I can't think of another Super Bowl team that has flat out disintegrated so quickly, that had its head coach and its supposed franchise quarterback and the Super Bowl MVP backup quarterback, all of them gone 3 years later. That's probably unprecedented. Now, it's somewhat unprecedented that you've got a franchise quarterback starter and a backup who's the Super Bowl MVP, but just the idea that we've seen so much turnover in such a short period of time, it almost feels like this team's resetting at a time when we thought maybe they would have had another Super Bowl trophy. I know going into the 2019 season, I said if Carson Wentz stays healthy wire to wire, they're going to be a team that could go back and win it again with him as the quarterback, not Nick Foles.
Yeah, and it just didn't happen for him, Mike. For whatever reason, this team did disintegrate in a hurry. And you look at just how bad. I mean, we were still picking them to win the NFC East. That's how bad the NFC East was late into the season. I mean, really late into the season, and they finished with 4 wins. So this turned out to be a really bad team in a really bad division, and they have a long way to go to get back to where they once were, winning that Super Bowl, Mike.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with the Eagles as they begin this process of putting bodies around Coach Nick Sirianni and quarterback Jalen Hurts, starting with the question of who the other quarterback will be. So let's get to our standard formula for every one of these teams. 1 player in each, 1 player out each. Let's start with who we think is going to join the Eagles who wasn't on the team last season, Charean.
Well, I'm going to go with Jacoby Brissett, who I mentioned earlier, because he played for Sirianni for 3 years in Indianapolis. He can provide veteran competition. I realize you're saying, well, Jacoby Brissett is not great. I get that. He didn't have a great season with Indianapolis when he was their starter. They went out and replaced him with Phillip Rivers, but they don't have the money to go out and get a really huge name, a Jameis Winston or somebody else. And do you want to use that draft pick, that top 10 draft pick on a quarterback? Maybe you do, but I want to see what I have in Jalen Hurts. I want to let him compete for that job. I did use a 2nd-round pick on him last year, so I want to see what I have in him and use that pick on another position. That's what I would do at this point. Again, they're not a team, Mike, I see as competing for a championship this season. So let's begin that rebuild process and see what we have in Jalen Hurts if he can be our quarterback.
I'm fascinated with the possibility of Nick Foles coming back for what would be his third stint with the Eagles. Drafted in 2012, traded away a few years later, back in 2017, obviously Super Bowl MVP that season. He's not a starter, and he never will be a consistent, successful starter. He's the guy who comes in when the starter gets injured, and it works. It doesn't work when he's the starter. It does work when he's the backup, and that would be a very valuable backup, and it would mean Jalen Hurts is the starter. Nick Foles would be a backup who's brought in to solely be the backup. Brissett maybe would have the door open to possibly start over Jalen Hurts if he could win that competition. And I think we also have to watch a couple of other former Colts, T.Y. Hilton, Marlon Mack, a couple of skill position guys who are going to be on the market. Mack is a guy they could probably get for cheap coming off of the torn Achilles that he suffered way back, I think, in week 1 of the 2020 season. You plug him into that depth chart if he's healthy, and he makes you better running the football. So, it makes sense to be looking at the connective tissue between Nick Sirianni and guys that he already knows. Who do you think is going to be off of the roster beyond Carson Wentz?
Yeah, and we already know a bunch of moves they're going to make and have made. Deshaun Jackson's gone, and Malik Jefferson and Alshon Jeffrey are going to be post-June 1 cuts, Mike. But the guy probably we haven't talked enough about who I think is going to be on his way out the door is Zach Ertz. I do think they move on from him. He had a disastrous season, and it began with he felt betrayed that he was promised that they would rework his contract. Whether that happened or not, who knows? But that's the way he felt anyway. And then he goes out and has a really bad year. He plays 11 games, 30 catches, 335 yards, and a touchdown. Statistically was the worst season of his career. They already have Dallas Goedert at that position. They need upgrades at receivers to go with Dallas Goedert. But I think he's a guy, Mike, that I see on his way out of Philadelphia.
Another guy I think to keep an eye on, and it creates some significant cap space, 8 figures of it, if they cut Derek Barnett before his fifth-year option becomes fully guaranteed on the first day of the league year. Now, I think that rule's changing, and I think it kicks in for the 2018 class, 2019 at the latest, that when they exercise the option, it is fully guaranteed, not just injury guaranteed, but Barnett could be gone because that's a quick way to pick up a big, big piece of salary cap space. The other thing they could do is just go to him and say, hey, we're going to cut you, and, here's our alternative offer. Feel free to shop it if you want, but this is what we're going to pay you if you would decide to stay. But otherwise, you're going to be out of here. He's shown potential at times, but that $10 million plus price tag, a little bit too much for the Eagles. And I agree with you as well, Zach Ertz. It's just a matter of time before he's gone. And it may be they don't find a trade partner. It may be that they just have to flat out release Zach Ertz. He hasn't been happy there, and it's pretty clear that he's going to move on.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.